On the night of February 24th, 1978, 5 friends left a college basketball game in Northern California. By the end of the week, they would be at the center of one of the strangest missing persons cases in American history. What happened to the Yuba County 5 remains a mystery more than 4 decades later. The story begins in Yuba City, California, a quiet agricultural community surrounded by farmland and foothills. The 5 men at the center of the case were well known in their community. They were 24-year-old Jack Madruga, 30-year-old Bill Sterling, 32-year-old Ted Wire, 29-year-old Gary Mathias, and 25-year-old Jackie Hewitt. Most of the men had mild intellectual disabilities. They lived with family members, worked part-time jobs, and were deeply involved in a local basketball team sponsored by a program for people with developmental challenges. Basketball was a major part of their lives. The next morning, they were scheduled to play in a tournament. Friends and relatives later said the men were excited and had spent days preparing for the event. On February 24th, the group drove to Chico, California, about 50 miles north of Yuba City, to watch a college basketball game between California State University, Chico, and UC Davis. Witnesses reported that the friends appeared happy and in good spirits. After the game ended around 10 p.m., they stopped at a convenience store. A clerk later remembered seeing them buy snacks, soft drinks, and milk. Nothing about the encounter seemed unusual. Then they got back into Jack Madruga's turquoise Mercury Montego and disappeared. When the men failed to return home that night, their families immediately became concerned. This was not normal behavior. Several of the men followed strict routines and rarely changed plans without informing relatives. Most importantly, none of them would willingly miss the basketball tournament scheduled for the next morning. As hours passed, concern turned into panic. A large search operation was launched. At first, investigators assumed the men might have been involved in a traffic accident somewhere along the route between Chico and Yuba City, but the first major clue would lead the investigation somewhere completely unexpected. 4 days after the disappearance, a forest ranger discovered Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego abandoned deep in the Plumas National Forest. The location shocked investigators. The vehicle was nearly 70 miles away from Chico and far from the route the men should have taken home. Even more puzzling, the road climbed high into the mountains. The area was remote, isolated, and covered in snow. Investigators examined the vehicle carefully. There was no evidence of an accident. The car was not damaged. It had not become stuck. According to reports, it appeared capable of being driven away. Inside, investigators found snack wrappers, maps, and personal belongings. The keys were missing. Nothing suggested a violent struggle. The mystery only deepened. Why had the group driven into the mountains? No one could explain it. Family members insisted the men had no reason to be there. Most of them were unfamiliar with the area. As winter storms continued, search efforts became increasingly difficult. Weeks passed without answers. Then investigators received a strange lead. A man named Joseph Shawns reported that he had suffered a heart attack while driving through the same mountain area on the night the 5 disappeared. According to Shawns, he had become stranded after his car got stuck in the snow. While sitting in his vehicle, he claimed to have seen headlights nearby. He later reported seeing a group of people, including what appeared to be a woman holding a baby. Shawns called for help but received no response. Investigators considered his account but struggled to verify many details. The story became one more mysterious piece of an already confusing puzzle. Months later, after snow began to melt, search teams finally made a major discovery. On June 4th, 1978, a group of motorcyclists exploring the forest came across a Forest Service trailer. Inside, they found the body of Ted Wire. The scene was astonishing. The trailer contained supplies. There was food, there was clothing, there was fuel for heating. Many of the resources appeared untouched. Investigators determined that Ted had survived for weeks, possibly even months after entering the trailer. Evidence suggested he had lost a significant amount of weight before dying. His beard growth indicated he had remained alive long after the disappearance, but despite being surrounded by supplies, he had not fully utilized the resources available. Nearby, investigators discovered the remains of Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga. Their bodies were found in the forest between the abandoned car and the trailer. Both had died from exposure to the harsh winter conditions. A short distance away, searchers located the remains of Jackie Hewitt. His body had been partially scavenged by animals, making it difficult to determine exactly how he died, but exposure was considered the likely cause. Only one member of the group remained missing. Gary Mathias had vanished without a trace. Unlike the others, Mathias had served in the military and was considered more experienced outdoors. He also had a history of mental health struggles, including schizophrenia. At the trailer, investigators found clues suggesting he may have survived longer than the others. Several pairs of shoes were missing. One pair reportedly belonged to Mathias. This led some investigators to believe he may have reached the trailer with Ted Wire and later left the area. If that happened, no one knows where he went. His body has never been found. The discoveries raised more questions than answers. Why did the men abandon a functioning vehicle? Why walk into freezing wilderness conditions? Why were life-saving supplies inside the trailer largely unused? And how did they end up so far from their intended route home? Over the years, investigators have proposed several theories. One possibility is that the group became lost after taking a wrong turn. Perhaps they encountered road conditions that caused confusion or panic. Another theory suggests they may have been following someone or attempting to help a stranded motorist. Some researchers have speculated that Gary Mathias may have experienced a psychiatric episode that influenced the group's decisions. However, there is no evidence proving this occurred. No signs of foul play were ever discovered. At the same time, many aspects of the case remain difficult to explain through simple misadventure. The abandoned car remains one of the strongest mysteries. Experienced investigators noted that the vehicle was not trapped in a way that would have prevented it from being driven away. Yet the men left it behind and entered dangerous terrain on foot. Even today, experts continue debating the significance of that decision. Family members spent years searching for answers. For them, the mystery was never merely an investigation. It was a personal tragedy marked by uncertainty and grief. Many questions that emerged in 1978 remain unresolved. The Yuba County 5 case has often been compared to other famous disappearances because of its unusual circumstances. Yet, unlike many mysteries, this story is grounded in a series of confirmed facts that seem impossible to fit together. 5 friends attended a basketball game. They purchased snacks on their way home. They drove into a remote mountain region where they had no known reason to be. Their vehicle was left behind. 4 of them died. 1 disappeared forever. And despite decades of investigation, no definitive explanation has ever emerged. The mountains of Northern California have long since returned to silence. The snow that once covered the forest melted decades ago, but the questions remain. What caused 5 men to leave the safety of their car and walk into the wilderness? What happened during those critical hours after they left Chico? And what became of Gary Mathias? The answers may still be hidden somewhere in the vast forests of the Sierra Nevada. Until they are found, the Yuba County 5 will remain one of America's most haunting and perplexing true crime mysteries.